Hey, how's it going? Thought I'd just make this video because I feel like this is something a lot of us should really talk about, and the media should really get onto really when it comes to this sort of thing, because the mental health of a substantial part of the population is actually quite important, because when it comes to having really bad mental health and stuff, that can overall impact the society for the worse. Not just when it comes to things like jobs and productivity, you know, when guys don't really have a lot of motivation, they don't really see so much of a point as to put in a lot of effort and working environments, get jobs. And if they are working, a lot of them will end up doing things that are detrimental to them in the times they have off, like outside of work, drinking and doing drugs and things more than they would normally. Staying up late nights, indulging in damaging content, I'll say, online, because of how things are, just as a way of coping. Basically, I'm making this video to just address something that a lot of guys go through, and I think it's really shit. It's one that doesn't have to happen, you know, and the chances that any girls will even watch this, or, you know, if other guys talk about this sort of thing, the chances of any actual female audience seeing this is pretty much slim to none, considering they don't seem to really care about men's problems. And generally, for the most part, guys who do complain get belittled, shunned and made fun of. It's always the guy's fault, even when he's going through some problem, you know. That's the thing that society is seeming to way that society's seeming to go these days. So most of the time, you know, guys are expected not to complain about their issues and things like that. So it's an unfortunate thing. Guys being people who make up most of the work, like the physical workforce and of maintaining the industry and the system, really. When it comes to the infrastructure, I think you know, to do decent by guys is a good thing, really. Unfortunately, society is in a stage where it generally won't acknowledge or even want to, let alone do anything about men's problems. That's the first issue. One of the really crappy things I find is that going through life having problems and like the issues that guys deal with and stuff, you know, that's one thing, but when you have like your problems not only ignored, but I think one of the bigger issues here isn't just the fact that a lot of guys are stuck with problems that they wouldn't actually, in an ideal situation, have to deal with, or even things. A lot of these are things that society could do things to improve, so guys wouldn't have to go through a lot of this stuff. So unfortunately, a lot of these issues exist for a lot of guys, and like I said, they could be avoided. But guys left to deal with these issues is one thing, but I think the real problem happens when these issues aren't just addressed, or even, you know, like in the best scenario, society, the media and the government would actually look at trying to change things, so guys didn't have a lot of the problems that they do. But I think, like I'm trying to say, the main issue isn't just that nobody wants to acknowledge or help guys with their issues, but the fact is that for a lot of the time, people generally just tend to run guys down whenever they talk about their problems. You know, guys are often mocked, even by their male employers, you know, by other people when they open up about this. Whenever they talk about issues, expected to just choke it down, you know, like some great big turd sandwich. Just choke it down, never even worry about it, just harden up, just be some emotionless person. I don't believe men are meant to be emotionless. There's a difference between being incredibly externally over emotional and just being some fucking rock that expresses no emotion. You know, we want all the same things as anybody else to some degree. You know, we all go through hard times, loss, issues and things that can really break us as people. So I just hate the fact that, you know, when you are going through things, we're expected to act as if we're not. So, you know, the media just, what I can't understand is that, you know, guys being such a huge part of the industry when it comes to roads, electrical, all the crappy jobs, you know, keep the system going, why they're so neglected when it comes to the mental side of their well-being. But that isn't really what necessarily I'm making this video about. I'm talking about more of the way that females seem to feel the need to treat what they consider to be undesirable guys. In a lot of street interviews and videos I've seen, a lot of girls are asked, you know, who is smarter out of the two genders. They always say themselves. Who, you know, they basically say in some videos when asked what are men good for, they basically say they're better at nothing, they're good for nothing. You know, they try to say that the world would be better off without men and stuff, like all this shit. They literally, it's like they have no acknowledgement or realization for exactly what guys are responsible for. When their car, I'm not trying to say, you know, there is a tiny percent of female mechanics, electricians and people like that. I'm not saying they don't exist. You know, there's always the extremes, but they're in very small number. See, these people who say this sort of shit don't seem to realize that when their car breaks down, and I'm not talking about a freaking flat tire, I'm talking about like I don't know, like an alternator's gone, or the freaking thing sprung an oil leak, or it just dropped all its coolant, got some kind of electrical issue or something else, the plumbing's gone in the house. You know, you need somebody to pave the roads over, maintain the electrical grid, work on the power lines and things like that. You know, create new technology. I mean, hell, the technology that they use to take advantage of men, like cell phones and all this crap, was made by men. It's basically like an Achilles heel for us, really. Made it to make social life a bit better and easier, but it's actually made it a shitload worse, you know. But anyway, the thing is that all of the whole infrastructure, the buildings, the maintaining of the houses, everything wouldn't exist if it wasn't for men. Yeah, but they seem to think, you know, that because they don't really cross paths with these men aside from when they need some work done, you know, they don't really have any involvement with the builders and the plumbers and the people who make all of the sewage systems or the air lines or any of the things in factories and stuff. It's like they forget that they exist, you know. And the fact that a lot of them pretty much just say that the world would exist fine without men, and that men are just crap, and the way that they talk down to them is actually, it's incredibly ignorant, because I myself don't have much involvement in the infrastructure. For the most part of my life, I've driven around, I've taken advantage of products and supermarkets and shops and whatever, because I'm just a consumer. Go to a job, go home, get drunk, whatever, consume. You know, I'm just like a person who benefits off of it to some degree. I don't really have involvement with these people, but I have to acknowledge the importance of these people to even have all of this still running. And I know it would fall apart really quickly if it wasn't for that. And what I'm really getting at isn't to try and say that, you know, that the females should be nice and kind to the builder or the electrician or the worker or whatever when they see him, because he does a job, whatever. I'm just saying that the regular guys who that they don't really seem to have any value for, or that they pretty much disrespect or think shouldn't exist. A long time, sorry, to get around to all I'm saying, really trying to say, I find it horrible that the way that not only are they ignorant to what a lot of guys do, but they're also ignorant to what a lot of guys go through. You know, and I understand that it's really hard to think about someone else going through a problem that you don't personally have. it's like a rich person look down on a homeless person or a poor person there, like sitting on a bench or something, because, well, why didn't you just make the same moves I did, you know? Not everybody has the same opportunities. Not everyone comes from the same background, and not everybody comes from the same level of appearance, and your appearance does really do a huge deal to the extent of how you may have success in the workplace in real life. I mean, I think it's something like well over 50% or something of CEOs and people who manage companies are well over 6 foot, despite that height being a very small portion of the population. I mean, the last 2 jobs I were in, my employer was 6'4", and you almost never see anybody there. Not generally, and it's no coincidence. All of the other guys are significantly shorter, so that does play a part. So what I'm trying to say really is that I understand that a lot of these girls and things, a lot of these people don't understand what privilege is like, because they can't look at life outside of how they see things themselves. So usually when girls hear guys complaining, they just think of somebody like a poor person complaining they can't be rich. Like they see it like somebody complain. That's why they seem to call it entitlement when guys talk about wanting relationships and things, because they get it easy when it comes to that. They can find relationships relatively easy because most men are quite desperate. And because of this, and the fact that they don't have to earn it, the fact that they don't have to face these problems themselves, they can't understand when guys complain, and they feel it like almost like a personal attack or something, because they act like, it's like they act like guys are just asking for something that they don't deserve. And yeah, nobody does deserve or be owed anything in life, but that's the problem, is that when they have these privileges themselves, when they have this easy, they can't see what it's like. So yeah, but you know, I can understand in a way how they say that most of the female population pretty much only has eyes for around the top 5% of men, maybe top 10% of men. So the majority of other guys are pretty much invisible to them, which makes sense as to why they seem to think that the industry would exist without men, why all of the guys who do the labouring jobs don't matter, because when it comes down to it, these guys are pretty much invisible to them. That's why they don't seem to think about the bigger picture of the infrastructure or anything, because it's not a problem that they have to deal with. They don't think about things that they don't have to deal with like that. They only really have eyes for around 5% of guys. Then that means that the majority of other guys are pretty much irrelevant to them. They don't care about, they don't even cross their mind. And these top percent of guys really is mostly just because of looks. There's people who are famous, who are a tiny minority, and the people who are in the media who have attention brought to them. A lot of those are good-looking people, or even ugly people. If they have some kind of status, like they're in a movie or in a band or something in the media, then that sort of puts them outside of the regular box of being excluded. That sort of pulls them into the attention, you know, by a different means. But generally the top 5% of guys is mostly just those who tend to. The thing that really bothers me when I'm really making this video is the fact that females seem to have some compulsion to want to treat men who they consider undateable or at the lower end of society like shit, you know. And it's like, I can understand if you're not interested in a guy, if you don't find most guys attractive because they don't like meet your criteria looking like a male model. I think that's stupid. I think that's stupid that they only find those guys attractive, like a few percentage of men. But what I can't understand, what I can't forgive, is the fact that they seem to want to treat all of the other guys on the lower end of the spectrum like shit. You know, it's like, I can understand if most girls wouldn't really want to talk to me. I could understand if most of them wouldn't want to be in a relationship or give me any time of day or anything like that. But what I can't understand is when I'm walking down the street and you see guys like me out of your car and you decide to laugh at them or scowl at them or give them a horrible look, you don't seem to understand that some of us are literally a few steps away from killing ourselves over this. A lot of us have gone years, months if not years, without any kind of interaction from the opposite sex. A lot of guys I've known have probably gone years without a hug. The 40-year-old virgin is no joke. I've literally known guys who've spent 10-15 years celibate, and they're not some weird like balding office worker guy who's like autistic and have some issues. You know, there is a lot of guys that even I know that are on the way to being a 40-year-old virgin. Females will say things like, well, what do I care, it's not my problem, just pick yourself up, or they say up your game and all this shit. Most guys, even if they get fit, even if they wear the best clothes and things, aren't going to be getting anywhere near close, because the girls that see it as being good aren't ones who put in a lot of effort. I mean, sure, a lot of them do work on their fashion, a lot of them do work on their fitness, but these are people who have that good genetics anyway, where they look good and how tall, you know. Most of us putting in the work, it's nothing to do with lazy, will not reach that degree. So, you know, it's like, there's no reason to be horrible, to be nasty and towards guys who look bad.